Afternoon, a very good afternoon to everyone. I would like to begin with a slogan which is somewhere something incredible is waiting for you to be known for the researchers. This webinar is especially for the researchers, PhD researchers, and MPhil and LLM researchers. I, Dr. Ruchi Tiwari, Associate Professor from the Parul Institute of Law, welcomes you all for the webinar for PhD scholars on hypothesis formulation organized by Parul Institute of Law. Here at university, we believe in this is where you begin, the future is today. So on that note, it's something which is bridging the gap between academia and career, paying the emphasis on the overall development of a student. For today's webinar, is specially organized, as I've already told, for the PhD scholars and the MPhil students and our LLM students, that how to formulate a hypothesis, how important is the hypothesis, what do you mean by the hypothesis. But before commencing the program, I would like to introduce our Director Dean, Professor Akhil Syed sir, who has played a vital role in overall development of our PhD scholars. Sir has more than 26 years of experience and holds more than 10 projects in different areas. Sir, I would like to request you for a welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ruchi. Thank you very much. I always feel that I did my PhD. Actually, I was the first PhD holder from GNLU, but Dr. Ruchi is making me to again go through the whole process of PhD coursework and get me interacted with such a luminary people like Professor Rashmi is with us today. It's a great pleasure, ma'am. It is a great opportunity for not only my PG and PhD scholars, but for all of us faculty members, including the director also, to again brush up the knowledge about the basic concepts of hypothesis so that we can improve the quality of research. Ma'am, our is a private university. We established in 2015 as a university. Earlier it was a group of institution, Parul group of institutions since 90s. It was in an existence, and from 2016, after getting the university status, we started the law program. And I'm happy to share with you that in addition to our 5 years integrated program, 3 years LLB program, and 1 year LLM with 6 different specialization, we do have the students of our MPhil as well as PhD, and our number of PhD scholars in faculty of law is nearly 38. So all this, I only guide 8 of them. The rest of the are guided by my young staff like Dr. Ruchi. She is an associate professor, and that is how we do have a group of good professors at the Parul Institute of Law, and that is how we are able to maintain the standard, overall standard of the higher education and particularly research. Because all the professors are also focusing on their research performance. That is what is the management also insists us. So I am very much thankful to Dr. Ruchi for inviting Dr. Rashmi Salpekar ma'am and Dr. Rashmi also. Thank you very much on my personal behalf, on behalf of Parul Institute of Law and Faculty of Law, Parul University. I welcome you, ma'am. Please.
Thank you, sir. Now, I'd like to introduce Professor Dr. Rashmi Salpekar ma'am, who is a professor of law and dean of a law college, Vivekanand Institute for Professional Studies. Ma'am has done PhD in international law and has received a fellowship from ICSSR. Ma'am holds the master's degree in human rights and MA in psychology. More than 15 years of experience in research, including a working experience with research officer in Maharashtra State Commission for Human Rights. Ma'am is also holding a specialization in international public international law, international criminal law, international humanitarian law, international trade law, commercial law, and human rights. And I would like to add, ma'am holds special contacts with farmers' rights also. So ma'am has worked for farmers' rights and land acquisitions also. Ma'am has been invited to various national and international conferences and seminars, which includes international conference in Hong Kong, Western Australia, Hague, Netherlands, Europe. Ma'am has published many books and papers. As I've already told, ma'am has worked on the empirical research on rights of farmers and land acquisitions, which was funded by, again, ICSSR, New Delhi. Ma'am is guiding PhD students and also guiding LLM students. Ma'am has been an executive member of All India Law Teachers Congress and a member of World Society for Victimology, special category consultative status with the Economic and Social Council of United Nations. She's also a Life Fellow of Indian Social Science Academy. Thank you so much, ma'am, for coming. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ruchi, for giving me such welcome and also with such a heavy introduction. But yes, ultimately we all are the faculty members and we all are the researchers and we are the students of law. So I think this is what introduction I always enjoy. I would like to thank the Dean, Dr. Akil Syed also, that he is here and he has given also such a generous welcome note. So thank you so much. And I'm extremely happy to know that so many researchers are with you, like 38. It means that 38 ideas, 38 future inventions are with you. So all best wishes to you and hearty congratulations also for the same. So now here, the topic which is assigned to me by Dr. Ruchi Tiwari, who is also a very good researcher, and I'm having an opportunity to see her research very closely. So the topic which has been assigned to me, that is formulation of hypothesis. This is the topic which has been given. So let me try if I can share my PPT. So I hope that you have made me presenter.
Yes, ma'am, you can.
Okay, one second. Yes, I hope the screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Yes, so hypothesis formulation. Now, the formulation of hypothesis is one of the most important step in research. In each and every type of research, in each and every discipline, you would find that the hypothesis formulation is one of the step wherein the researchers, they really take a bit pause. It is because that many a times the researchers, even though they are very much aware about their identification of problem or so, but still how to frame hypothesis, how to write hypothesis, what is the relativity of the hypothesis, what is the importance of hypothesis. So there are many questions pertaining to the hypothesis. So therefore, hypothesis is one of the step wherein we really take a pause, that how to go about it. Now it is stated by a famous jurist, Jurist Pound, that being a lawyer, let us look to economics and sociology and philosophy and cease to assume that jurisprudence is self-sufficient. Let us not become legal monks. Now, why exactly he stated like this? And when I was just thinking that how to start today's webinar, so somehow I found that, yes, this is the quotation from where I can start. Now, this regarding the being a lawyer, let us look at let us look to economics and sociology and philosophy. Now, here you would find that law is an interdisciplinary subject. We cannot study law in isolation. Law involves economics, law involves sociology, it involves philosophy as well. So thus, only by remaining in law, we won't be able to serve the purpose of legal profession. And only legal profession is the one profession who has place in our Indian Constitution. So thus, you can imagine that how important the legal profession is for the entire country, and for that matter, it is important even for the entire, like Indian constitution is important for India. Likewise, each and every state, they are having their own constitution. So thus how it is important and how important legal profession is. So thus, in this legal profession, you would find that whenever we study law, it is always coming up with some of the subject. So the point is that it is an interdisciplinary subject. So as it is an interdisciplinary subject, and we are not supposed to be only in law by becoming ourselves only as a legal monk, we are required to look into the disciplines of other disciplines as well. So thus, a major thing which is required in our advocates, in our lawyers, in our law faculty members, or as also in law students, that we are required to be very much curious about it. We need to have many questions. If you have more questions, it means that yes, you can be a very good legal professional. And similarly, this kind of attitude and this kind of approach you also required when you are a researcher. A researcher is also required to have a plenty of questions. Now, when a researcher is carrying himself with plenty of questions, a researcher who is always updating himself, he is reading about that particular questions. So thus, he is also coming up with some kind of hunch. He's also having some kind of guessings that yes, for my question, this can be an answer. And this hunch you would have only when you have updated yourself, you have read your literature, then only you will be able to have that particular hunch, right? So these are the qualities which a lawyer must have, which are the qualities which a law student must have. So thus, the point is that as a lawyer, we are not supposed to remain only up to law, that okay, this is the law, now you need to implement, you need to follow it. No. If this is a law, then what better can be there? Is it so that all the provisions you are able to implement? Okay, you are able to implement so and so provisions in the year 2019. But in 2021, is it so that the same provisions you are able to implement when in between in 2020 you have faced a lot of issues because of COVID-19? Like for example, now we are having this webinar online. We are having classes online. But however, earlier, your presence in classroom, that was like we cannot negotiate in regarding that particular provision. So that was the scenario. But however, at present, we are taking online classes. So the point is that law is essential. Legal profession is required to serve the society. To serve the society, we have made various laws. But however, laws are not perfect in nature, right? So when we are adopting laws, so that time maybe it is perfect, but however, when we are moving ahead, maybe you would find that it is not perfect because of particular or because of this today's time or because of today's scenario. So thus laws are not perfect. As the laws are not perfect, so therefore we, being the legal monks, we won't be able to serve the society. We won't be able to serve the purposes of this legal profession. Thus, we are required to be constantly curious about our literature, about our laws, and various other rules and regulations which are the part of this law. So thus, research is required. Now, you would find that many a times we made law because there are few issues, because there are few problems, right? For example, we are having the Succession Act. Okay, for example, we are having Succession Act. Why we are having Succession Act? Because we have seen that even in family also they are having their disputes pertaining to the succession, pertaining to their property. So therefore, we have made the succession laws. Similarly, we have a law on marriage. We have a law regarding divorce also, how to dissolve the marriage. So why we are having these laws? Because there are various issues, and that is why we have made law on the same. Even though we are having few customary practices regarding our family law, but still we have made laws. So because of the problems, means the problems comes first and then thereby we give a solution in the form of law. This is one scenario. And another scenario is that wherein the law is not, when the issue is not there, the problem is not there. But however, in future, that problem may come, and therefore as a preventive measure, we adopt that particular law. So I always give example of environmental law. So when the Environment Protection Act we adopted, so that time that was the awareness regarding the pollution and other kind of issues were not there. But however, we have seen that okay, these kind of issues may come up, and therefore we we adopted the Environment Protection Act. In fact, under international law also, international environmental law, mainly like many of the aspects. So those aspects has been come, or we have made various conventions just because of that particular hunch that if we will move forward only like this, then in that case one day maybe we would find that there is no clean air to breathe, there is no clean water to drink, right? For example, now also the climate change, relating to climate change and other things, why we have adopted, because according to us, if we will keep on our activities like this, if we will do a lot of industrialization, there will be no forest and etc., then what will be the fate of the same? So therefore, even though we are not in that situation, but still we have adopted various environmental regulations. So these are the two scenarios wherein the problem is there, therefore we are giving a solution in the form of law. And another scenario that there is no problem, but still we are having that hunch, we are having that guess that okay, if we will do like this, then in that case problem may come. So therefore also we draft law. Okay. And similarly, even when we give decisions in the court, then the judges, they also see that what kind of problem is there, and according to that they always give decision in that particular case. So thus the point is that it is very important for the lawyers, legislators and judges that they are required to be the researchers of the law, as it impacts all. We cannot forget that law is a normative science. Law is a normative science. It means that whatever the rules and regulations we are drafting, if they will be implemented, if they will be adopted and then it will be implemented, then in that case, if someone will not follow that particular rule, he will be punished. So it is a normative science. It is not only a social science. It is not only a pure science. It is a normative science. So therefore, the lawyers, legislators, they are required to be updated so much so that there must not have any injustice. Okay. So there is a lot of responsibility on the legal professionals. So thus we cannot remain ourselves only as legal monks. We have to see that what exactly is going on. What are the problems of sociology? What are the problems of economics? What are the problems of international relations? And then according to that, we are required to adopt our rules and regulations. Right? Now, what about the legal research? What about the legal research? Yes, legal research is required because, as I've told you, that we are required to be perfect, and no law is perfect in nature. So therefore, consistently we are required to do research. Now, legal research, coming on the legal research, now I will not go for the definition of legal research, or also now another step, that is identification of problem. Now from this slide onwards, I will go for hypothesis. Now, whenever we are going for legal research, you would find that there are mainly three steps. One is that is identification of research problem, right? And then further is about development of the aspects of the main identified problem which we wanted to focus on. Like if you have identified a research problem, that is, for example, rights of farmers, or for that matter, right to education. Okay. So thus, this is what is you have identified problem. Then, but however, after that, you are required to develop your faculty in the same, right? You are required to develop that faculty in the same. So how you will do it? You are required to develop. You are required to read various aspects which are revolving around the research problem. And then when you are reading, you have identified a problem. For example, if your research problem is that in rural areas, the girl children are not getting education. Okay. If this is your research problem, that why the girl children, they are not getting proper education, they are not in the school, and their attendance is low, attendance is less in comparison to boys. Okay. Admission, the rate of the admission is also less in comparison to boys. If these are your few problems, then in that case, you will carry some kind of guessings or some kind of hunch. Okay, that okay, in this particular rural area, there are a lot of responsibilities even on the small girls as well, because their parents, they are working in farm, in in farms, or maybe they are working on some construction site also, which is going on very nearby to that village. And as a result, a girl is staying at home, right, to look after all her household work also, and therefore the admission rate is less, or the attendance rate of girls is less in comparison to boys, right? So these are various hunches. So this is what we call it as the formulation of hypothesis and our arguments. These are our arguments. Okay. For example, girls are discriminated in comparison to boys. This is our argument. And when it will be a statement, when you will be able to prove it, right? Like in the court of law, one counsel they argue, another counsel they also argue. From plaintiff, one counsel is there. From defendant side, another counsel is there. Then one counsel would say that, okay, in this case, my plaintiff or my client has not done anything unnecessarily. He has been, involved in this particular case. He has no relation at all. This is an argument. And another counsel would say that, no, we are having enough evidences and etc. So therefore, yes, he is the person who has done it. So the point is that in the court of law also, we argue before the court. And when we argue, those argues we always support with the evidences. If you will not be able to support your argument with evidences, your case will not stand before the court of law. Isn't it? Now, how will you coin those arguments? Right? Client has come to you. You have studied that case. Now you will coin some kind of arguments, that what kind of arguments I should make in this particular case. And this is how you will start your journey of having guesses, having a guesswork or having hunch. And then you will pursue that, okay, is it the story? And then you will be able to develop your case and you will argue before the court. And then you will prove that, yes, how you are right. So for that matter, you need to attach all the evidences. You are required to attach all the proofs for the same. Similarly, even in research also, we do the same thing. We identify a research problem. Okay. We identify a research problem. Then when we have identified a research problem, we develop that, okay, what are these problems and when and how and where it is going on. So somehow we see that what is the scope and how far this particular problem has been played out, etc. So that we just identify, and after that we built our own argument. Okay, that argument is itself, that hunch is itself hypothesis. Okay, and the next level, this is what is idea level. Idea level consists of identification of problem, development of the aspects pertaining to the research problem, and third is formulation of hypothesis and our arguments. And then another level is about the research level, and at research level, based on the idea level, then we map various steps, we locate various data for the same. That is research level, that is the another level. So at present, we are going to discuss on hypothesis, which is one of the part of idea level. It is our idea that what would be the reason of so and so problem. So that is our idea. Okay. So at present, we are dealing with the idea level and mainly for the formulation of the hypothesis. Now, what exactly is the hypothesis? For that matter, you can you can read the meaning given by Gooday and Hatt. You can always refer a definition given by Mr. George A. Landberg. Okay, and yes, you can of course refer the Webster's New International Dictionary of English Language 1956 regarding hypothesis. Now, in all, if you will read all these definitions, for example, like Gooday and Hatt, who is an authority on research, means one should read a book written by Gooday and Hatt on research. So he defined hypothesis as a proposition which can be put to test to determine its validity. Okay, a proposition which can be put to test to determine its validity. So there are three features of this particular definition. One is it must be a proposition. It means that a hypothesis must not be a question. In research, you would find that there are two things. One is research questions and another is hypothesis. Research questions, it means that, for example, again, if we will take the same research problem, that the girls have been discriminated in comparison to boys. Okay, if this is your, that girls are not going to school and boys are going to the school, why girls are not going to the school, right? Why girls are not going to the school, question mark. So this is not a proposition, this is what is your question, what we call it as research question. But the same thing, now this is a question. For this question, when you will come up with your own tentative solution, that the girls are not going to the school as the girls have been discriminated in comparison to boys. Okay, so thus, wherein you have come up with this tentative solution, this statement form is about proposition, and we will call it as a hypothesis. Okay, so it has to be a proposition. This is number one feature. Another is that which can be put to test. Okay, means it must be testified. There are many things which you cannot test, Okay, for example, whether in the sky there are millions of stars or not. You cannot keep this particular proposition on a test, isn't it? So there are few things which you cannot test. You are required to say, okay, yes. Okay, let's move ahead. Say yes and just let's move ahead. So that kind of test you cannot apply. So hypothesis means a proposition which can be put to test to determine its validity, right? So we are required to determine its validity, that how far this hypothesis is valid in nature. Okay, when I'm saying that in this particular rural area, the girls are not going to the school. Why they are not going to school? This is my research problem, and my tentative conclusion or my hypothesis is that the boys have been given more preference in comparison to girls in the education sector. Okay, if this is my proposition, then yes, I can keep it on the test, and then further I can determine that whether it is valid or not. How I will be able to do it? Yes, I will go to that particular rural area. I will ask over there. Then I will ask that what are the provisions over there? Is there any school or not? So all these things I will do so that I can determine its validity. This is how Godey and Hatt has defined hypothesis. Similar kind of features you would find even in the case of Mr. George A. Lundberg's definition as well. That is, a hypothesis is a tentative generalization. Okay, it is a tentative generalization, the validity of which remains to be tested. And its most elementary stage, the hypothesis may be any hunch, guess, imaginative idea which becomes the basis for action or investigation. And on similar line, you would find the another definition also. So the main features of hypothesis is that it must be a proposition. You must be able to keep it on the test. Then third, so that you can test its validity. So thus, in our research thesis, you would find that we always write hypothesis in the very first chapter, in the chapter of research methodology, and at the end, in conclusion, we always test, and we always come out with this statement that whether the hypothesis is valid or invalid. Okay. Now, what exactly is the nature of the hypothesis? A hypothesis has to be very clear and unambiguous. Okay. It must be as unambiguous as possible, and it must have an intention to be investigated. Okay, it must have a scope for the investigation. So first of all, to have a scope to get that particular investigation, first of all, the problem must be a problem. Many a times I have seen that the students, they identified such kind of research problems which are solution in itself, that you are aware that okay, this is a solution, but still you take it as a problem. I do not know why. If there is a solution, why we are taking a problem, we are taking it as a problem. Yeah, you can test that solution. Okay, whatever the solution have been given, you can test that solution in different scenarios, in different situations. Okay, for example, if we are giving, or for example, let's have a rule. that in each and every person in his home, he should he should plant minimum 20 trees. Okay, and the trees of must be of such nature that that trees will give you good shadow. It's not like very small plants. So if this is a rule, so thus this rule will be followed by some of the areas. Okay, now this is a solution that okay, you wanted to create more plantations and for the protection of environment and in all these atmosphere, and therefore you have made it this rule. So this is a solution about that particular problem. Now whether this solution is a solution in each and every situation or not. So now the same rule, you made it compulsory in metro cities wherein people are living in like apartments or in flat system wherein they are not having enough land with them wherein they can have 20 trees, and trees also not small, they wanted to have a big trees which will give you shadow also. So it is not possible. So the point is that a solution which you are giving to a problem today, that solution itself will be a problem tomorrow, but for that matter you need to test it in multiple situations. Okay, so thus therefore we are required to be very clear and unambiguous whenever we are framing hypothesis. So thus whenever we are having a hypothesis, first we need to see that what exactly will be the research objectives, then what are our abstract concepts for the same, and then what kind of relationship you are having with problem statement and your literature or data. Okay, like the same rule, if you will take that we are required to plant at least 20 trees. Okay, we are required to plant at least 20 trees. If this rule you are taking, then what is the relationship with the problem? Is it so that that you would like to introduce your children with all these all these plants? Is that your objective? Or is it so that you are required, or you are aspiring to make to low down the level of the pollution in the air, so that is why you have asked to plant the trees? So this is what is the relationship. Okay, then for that matter you must have those key abstract concepts. Now what are those abstract concepts? The rule is saying that you are required to plant 20 trees. Okay, which trees, right? So this is, then you will come out with a rule, the trees which will give you shadow, or which will remain, whose life is more than 10 years or so. So this is what is your concept about tree, right? And then you will come out with your objectives also. So the point is that once you will come up with a hypothesis or with this particular statement, which will be very clear and unambiguous, then researcher will be able to reach on the next level, that is about the research objectives, then having the key abstract concepts, and also to decide the relationship of the problem statement with the literature review. So the main characteristics of hypothesis, what are they? Yes, it must be clear and precise. Okay. Then secondly, it must be testable in nature. And then third, that relationship between variables in case of relational hypothesis. Now, in hypothesis, cause and effect relationship is compulsory. Unless you will not give cause and effect relationship, it will be merely a problem statement. It will not be a hypothesis. So in this cause and effect relationship, you can have a statements like if and then. Like for example, if the resource person will reach on time in your webinar, so webinar will start on time, isn't it? So this is what is if and then. So if you will give a mandate in rural areas to send your to your daughters to school, then the ratio of girl students and boy students will come at par in the schools. So this is what is if and then. So this cause effect relationship has to be there. Many a times we come with comparative degree as well. So that also you can prefer, like more than, less than. Okay, for example, the more strict traffic rules will be there, the less accidents will occur. This is what is comparative degree. Okay, so cause and effect relationship has to be there. So in more than, less than, that is also cause effect relationship, that you have made stricter traffic rules. Okay, this is what is cause, and effect, that the rate of the accidents have gone down. So that is more than, less than. Okay, it must not have a very vast scope that you won't be able to prove it. Okay, so therefore you keep it limited in scope, but must be very specific, because you are required to test it. So therefore you must be aware that what exactly you are required to test. So therefore we need to have very simple statement in characteristic, in hypothesis. Okay, in addition to this, it must be consistent with most known facts. Known facts, now there are known and unknown facts, isn't it? So when we do research, yes, we are not aware about something. There are many questions, but then what exactly this point is saying, that if there are many questions, you please take up only one question. Okay, so it will be better to have only one question at one time, so that you will be able to test it very effectively. So it must be consistent with most of the known facts, and it must be consistent with a substantial body of established facts also, because in research we do journey from known to unknown. This is the journey of a research, known to unknown to known. Okay, because for example, we are aware that education is compulsory for children. Okay, we are aware, this is a known fact. Then why someone is not going to the school? This is unknown fact. Then you will make yourself aware. You will do your research, okay, and then you will be aware that, okay, this is the reason that why girls are not going to the schools. And then again, known fact will be there, that you will give suggestions, and then those suggestions will be implemented. That, okay, you will run your classes even on Saturday and Sunday also, because generally the parents are at home. So therefore the daughters can go to the school in rural areas mainly. Okay, so this is what is known, unknown, and known. So this is a continuous journey. What is known for you, based on that you will go for unknown. Okay, and once you will reach for unknown, that, okay, now I am aware about known, so you will again shift to known, and from there then again your journey will start towards unknown. Okay, so in this journey, if there are like 5 concepts, then in that at least 4 must have been established, and for one you need to do your research, and it must be done in a reasonable time. Okay, reasonable time is also required. And further, we must have a clarity on claims to explain that what exactly we are claiming. Like in court of law also, we must be clear that what exactly is our prayer in the court, right? So if we are very clear about the prayer, then the court will also be able to help us. If you are not aware that what exactly you want, then how the court of law will be able to give decision? So therefore the clarity has to be there. Hypothesis always enhances the objectivity in a study also, because in hypothesis, there are few concepts with which you come. For example, the more stricter traffic regulations will be there, less accidents will occur. Okay, so these are the cause and effect relationship and comparative degree you have preferred in this particular statement. Now here you would be able to find out more, specific objectives that you need to see that what are the traffic regulations. Then you need to see that what kind of traffic is there. Okay, how the people are implementing it. So it means with hypothesis you will be able to frame your objectives very well. Then secondly, you will be able to enable your own theory as well. Okay, and secondly, you will be able to aware that yes, what is true and what is false. So when if you will come up with this hypothesis, the more stricter regulations of the traffic will be there, the less accidents will occur. But then at the end, after doing all collection of data and etc., if you found that it is not because of the stricter regulations, that accidents are occurring less, but it is that yes, you have given prompt services in case of any accidents. Okay, so ambulance is reaching over there, or you have deployed police personnel everywhere, and they are also monitoring the traffic in your particular area. So that is why the accidents are occurring less. Okay, so when you will come on that okay, my hypothesis was not valid, but still therein you will find that satisfaction is there, that okay, this is what is the conclusion. Okay, and secondly, whenever you will test it, then you will be able to hold that what is truth and what is not. Okay, so these are the main points regarding the characteristics of hypothesis. Now, one question which generally law students always ask, that is hypothesis necessary or not? Because in legal research, you would find that it is a doctrinal research mainly. So therein, analytical research is there. Okay, in analytical research, we are required to analyze the facts, what it is. Okay, what it is. We need to deal with what it is. We need to deal more about what it is. It is an analytical research. So in analytical research, in doctrinal research, like we have fixed doctrines like judicial independence. This is a doctrine. Okay, so if this is a proved fact that yes, a judiciary has to be an independent, then in that case, is it so that we are required to do we are required to have any hypothesis on the same? So for this particular thing, I want to tell you that whenever we are thinking, because in hypothesis it is a hunch, it is these are the guessings of a researcher. So there are mainly three types of thinking. One is routine thinking, whatever the routine we are thinking. Okay, then interrogative thinking, and then reflective thinking. Routine thinking, it means that all those thinking which is very obvious in nature. Okay, like for example, clouds are there, so rain will come. Yes, rain will come. So in that case, that is a routine thinking. So that kind of hypothesis we do not want. Interrogative thinking, it means that wherein you ask questions consistently, that yes, why it is happening. Okay, why it is happening, why there are so many domestic violence cases which are going on, why there is a lot of discrimination which is going on in the society, not only between different sex, but also amongst caste, religion, why there is a lot of discrimination. So this is what is interrogative thinking. But only with this kind of thinking, you won't be able to come out with a solution. Or in fact, if you will keep on interrogative thinking, then in that case, you would find that you won't be able to sustain with all those questions. It will really make you very disturbed or sad. And another thinking is reflective thinking. So reflective thinking, it means that you think, you ask a question, and then you come out with a solution. Okay, you come out with a solution. Like for example, the same example I will take, that why girls are not going to school in that particular rural area. So you have come out with a hunch that it is because their parents must be working, so therefore they are not sending their daughters to the school in that rural area. So this is what is a hunch. This is what is an assumption. Before starting the journey of search, you always carry this kind of hunch. This is what is reflective thinking. In law also, we need to have this reflective thinking. We need to check these assumptions on and often, that whether these are proved assumptions or disproved assumptions, and then only we can reach on a conclusion. So therefore, hunch is always there whenever there is a research. Okay, research is not about routine thinking. Research is not about interrogative thinking. Research is about reflective thinking. So if it is about reflective thinking, then in that case, hunch has to be there. So in that case, hypothesis has to be there. So therefore, whether hypothesis is at all necessary, and mainly in legal research, so yes, it is necessary. Hypothesis has to be there. Now, how will you be able to have hypothesis? What are the sources for the same? So in that, there is one review of literature that we need to do. And yes, we need to do a lot of discussions with the experts and how it has been originated, what are its objectives, etc. Various intuitions of the researchers also, it is one of the source, that what are the intuitions. Because once we will see the situation, then you will be able to come out with some kind of situations also. And secondly, whether any empirical research or empirical studies have been done on this particular topic or not. So these are few things which researcher should always check so that they can come up with a good hypothesis. Now, what are the types of hypothesis? So mainly, there are two types, and then there are some subtypes of this research of hypothesis. Main two types are null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis. Okay, but there are two more hypotheses which I have mentioned, because if you will read various literature which is developed on hypothesis and the types of hypothesis, then you would find that generally these four types have been listed. Okay, but in most of the books they have mentioned only two types. One is null hypothesis and another is alternative hypothesis. For null hypothesis, again, there are subtypes, that is associative and causal hypothesis. And for alternative hypothesis, there are directional hypothesis and non-directional hypothesis. In addition to this, there are working hypothesis also and statistical hypothesis as well. Now, what exactly mean by the null hypothesis? Example for null hypothesis, let me start with an example so that you will be able to relate it properly. That is, an accused is not guilty. Okay. So in null hypothesis, generally we come out with a negation and we prove that yes, this is not there. Okay, this is not present over there. So that is null hypothesis. So wherein you deny. Okay. So thus that is about null hypothesis. Alternative hypothesis, it means that example I have given, that effective justice delivery mechanism reduces the commitment of planned crimes in the society. Okay, effective justice delivery mechanism. Now, what exactly alternative hypothesis? We can say that where null hypothesis ends, from their alternative hypothesis should begin. Null hypothesis said that yes, this is a denial situation, that this has not been done. Okay, full stop. But then has not been done. It is so. How exactly you will move ahead in that case? Okay, like you have proved that so and so person is not accused, and then further effective justice delivery mechanism will be able to help you to identify that who is the culprit. Okay, so this is what is effective justice delivery mechanism, wherein you give an alternative hypothesis. Working hypothesis is also there. Best example is about the cross-examination process in trial, tenability, wherein we see the tenability of those kind of arguments. And therein what we do, we cross-examine it. This is what is working hypothesis. So we can say that the small parts of a major hypothesis is always a working hypothesis. Then there are two more hypotheses. One is one-tailed hypothesis and another is two-tailed hypothesis. So it includes as directional hypothesis. So directional hypothesis is also called as one-tailed hypothesis. For example, we are saying that youngsters may be able to know more things about technology than elderly people. Okay. So herein we have given a direction for the same. Okay. And there is another hypothesis, that is non-directional hypothesis, which predicts that that, for example, if a person is able to recall more, so his age is less in comparison to those persons who are not able to recall more. Okay, so this is what is two-tailed hypothesis, wherein you have relate those two hypotheses with one another, that one is less because so and so category he belonged to, and another is more because he is belonging to another category. Okay, so this is what is two-tailed hypothesis. This is non-directional hypothesis. These are the main types of hypothesis. Two more types are associative and causal hypothesis. So associative hypothesis means they propose a relationship between variables, where one variable changes, the other also changes. They do not indicate as such, that is cause and effect. Okay, they are not about the cause and effect, but however, if one change, another also change. Okay, that is associative hypothesis. They are associated with each other. So they are in relation with each other, but their relationship is not about cause and effect relationship, but it is an associative. They are in association with each other. So both together, they create that impact on that particular thing. For example, effective judicial mechanism and effective work by police personnel has bring down the rate of crimes in so and so area. So herein the two things, that is effective judicial mechanism and effective work by the police personnel. So they are associated with each other. It is not cause and effect. Why? Because police personnel, they are doing their duties, they are having their own department. Judiciary, they are having their own department. Both are doing together, and therefore there is that particular effect. Okay, so this is what is associative hypothesis. And then there is causal hypothesis. They propose, this particular type of hypothesis propose a cause and effect interaction between two or more variables. Okay, there are two types of variable, like independent and dependent. So this is what is cause and effect relationship, which you will find in independent variable and dependent variable. In statistical hypothesis, you would find that the research hypothesis, wherein the research hypothesis needs to be translated into a statistical hypothesis to test whether the data support or refutes the null hypothesis. Okay, statistically you prove. So therein we called it as statistical hypothesis, and it is a statement about one or more parameters that are measures of the population under study. So in statistical hypothesis, you would find that you are aware about the statistics of the population. Okay, for example, in attendance register, like 30 are boys and 20 are girls. So this is what is and then you have come out with a hypothesis that the girls are less in school in comparison to boys. So this is what is statistical hypothesis, and you will prove it with the help of statistics only. Okay, so these are the few types of hypothesis. Now, what exactly is the formulation of hypothesis? In formulation of hypothesis, there are few things which we must note down. One is, it must be a proposition. It must not be a question. If you are ending it with a question mark, then it is a research question. It is not a hypothesis. Secondly, it must not be a plain simple statement. Otherwise, it will be a research statement. It is not a hypothesis. In hypothesis, either you go for cause and effect relationship, that is if and then, or either you may go for comparative degree. That is required. Okay, formulation of a hypothesis is an art, because the problem is so vast for you, for a researcher, and then you are coming up with that particular proposition, while writing hypothesis in just few sentences. So therefore we called that, yes, formulation of hypothesis is indeed an art. In order to formulate a valid doctrinal hypothesis, what exactly we are required? So doctrinal research and empirical research both are must have hypothesis. So if we are doing doctrinal research, then in that case hypothesis is required to be based on your very good understanding of that particular area. You must have a good literature review for the same, because once you will go through all that literature, then only you will be able to come out with your own hunch. Okay, so that hunch must be based on some literature which has been come up on that particular research area. Secondly, if you would like to really achieve that depth of knowledge, then in that case a researcher is required to ask those questions, is required to discuss those questions with many other experts as well. And this is an experience of many researchers, that the amount of knowledge which you will gain from a book, more amount of knowledge you will be able to gain when you are interacting with experts in that particular field. In formulation of hypothesis, there are few steps. One step is induction and deduction. Now, induction and deduction, it means these are the two approaches. One is deductive hypothesis. Deductive hypothesis, wherein you would find that you are going from general to particular. Okay, like generally the forests have been cut down, and therefore in this particular rural area also the forest have been cut down and it must be saved. Okay, so thus this is what is general to particular. When you are looking at complete Indian population, and then you are coming out with a kind of a concluding statement, or maybe your hunch for the same for a particular family for that matter. So this is what is general to particular. Okay. For example, in COVID-19, the amount of cases which we have seen in China, and because of that kind of thing, we have come out with our own regulation that okay, even in India also we should go for lockdown. So we generally saw that what is going on in China, what is going on in other cities or states located near to China, and then particularly for India we adopted those rules and regulations. This is what is general to particular. Then secondly, inductive hypothesis. Inductive hypothesis wherein we go from particular to general. Okay, wherein we start from one and then we go for more or many. So this is what is particular to general. So like for example, in the case of Nirbhaya, what happened to that particular girl? So because of that particular case, then we come out with amendments which are applicable in general. So this is what is particular to general. Okay. There are two types of variables. One is independent and another is dependent. So when we are formulating hypothesis, the steps are first induction and deduction. You must be able to know that whether you are going for induction process or deduction process. And then next is variables. You must be aware that what are your variables. There are two types of variables. One is independent and another is dependent. So independent, which cannot be changed. Okay? And the dependent means it will change as per that particular independent concept which you have taken. For example, one family would like to buy a flat, okay, and they have decided that okay, we need flat with 3 bedrooms and 1 kitchen and 1 drawing room and 1 puja ghar, etc. So these are the measurements which they are having in their mind, and then accordingly now they will look at the locality, okay, that whether we should go for Surat or whether we should go for Baroda, whether we should go for Ahmedabad. So this is how they will look into it. So thus independent is, yes, they wanted to buy a flat, and then dependent is locality. Okay, so it is depending that in which locality you would have. So this is independent and dependent. Okay, so in formulation of hypothesis, we must be very clear that what is my independent concept and what is my dependent variable, independent variable and dependent variable. So it is as good as a cause effect. Okay, cause and effect relationship. So independent variable is a cause and dependent variable is effect of the same. Now variables can be of 3 types. One is positive relationship. Okay, variables can have 3 types of relationships among themselves. One is positive relationship, another is negative relationship, and the third one is zero relationship. So positive relationship, it means that for example, if the occurrences of road accidents are more than population of violation of traffic rules, okay, so this is what is a positive relationship. And when you will go for negative relationship, that if the proportion of adherence of traffic rules increases, then occurrences of road accidents will decrease. So this is wherein you will come out like one is increasing and another is decreasing. So this is negative relationship. When both are increasing, then in that case it is positive relationship. And zero relationship, it means that one which shows no significant relationship. For example, people do not follow traffic rules. Some of them met with road accidents. Okay, so there is no relationship, because if all people would have met with road accidents who are not following traffic rules, then there is a direct relationship. Okay, but however here there is no relationship. This is what is zero relationship. So these are the 3 types. These are the 3 types of relationships amongst the variables. Now, what are the steps of writing the hypothesis? Okay, now we have understood that, okay, what are the types of hypothesis, what is the meaning of hypothesis, what are the types of hypothesis, okay, how to formulate hypothesis. Now, let's write our hypothesis. As you know that I have told you that literature review, is important. Without review of literature, we cannot move ahead. The more you will review the literature, the more you would have clear idea that what exactly you are feeling about that particular problem, what kind of guess you are having. The more you will read, the more the stable hunches you would have. Then secondly, we need to identify the key variables, and then we need to identify that what is the relationship between those variables, and then we need to also see that those variables must be measurable in nature. Next is we need to identify the study population. Okay, and whether miss what exactly is the direction of your prediction, so that also you are required to decide. And then we are required to identify the levels of, or the what we call it as the confidence levels of the outcome. Now there are three levels: one is abstract level, one is the middle level, and another is higher level. Okay, so these are the levels of your abstractions, because hypothesis is that what exactly you are thinking about. It is a kind of guess that, or a tentative conclusion, a testable tentative conclusion. Okay, so that we are required to, that is what is hypothesis. So when we are testing that hypothesis, then what kind of confidence level you would have? But is it so that 99%, this is the answer? Then you are required to write down in your hypothesis 99% confidence level is there, or 95% is there. So accordingly, we are required to write down. Okay. Generally, in empirical research, we come out with these kind of percentages. Then secondly, in writing of hypothesis, we need to, yes. Yeah.
We have a slot of 1 hour only, so
Yeah.
then live session will end. So that's why I wanted that we can be able
Okay.
to enjoy the full half.
Okay,
So
okay,
if we can
okay.
just find.
Yeah. So thus these are the
Sorry,
few
yes.
steps. Yeah. So thus these are the few steps, and to write the hypothesis. Okay. As I've told you that hypothesis, writing of hypothesis is an art. The more you will work on the same, and the more you will be able to justify also your work. Okay. So thank you so much. Only one point you are required to read on your own. This is your homework. Error in hypothesis. Okay, so it is quite possible that errors may come, so please take care of those errors also. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rashmi ma'am. It was my pleasure to have you. Actually, we have 1 hour live session, so that was the reason. Otherwise, the students won't be benefited by the same. Yes, I will just do it very fast. A vote of thanks. Thank you so much, Rashmi ma'am, to being with us, for gracing the chair and edifying our PhD students, and clearing their doubts regarding the hypothesis, because that's the basics. If they clear their hypothesis well, everything can be understood as well. I would also like to thank our director and dean, Professor Akhil Sayed sir, for their constant support and making me or helping me for arranging such kinds of webinar. And also a special thanks to Dr. Vanna Patel ma'am, doctoral studies, and Ajit Gagwani sir for giving us the support. Thank you all. Thank you so much, participants. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you, technical team, for giving us the support. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Webinar team. Hello, webinar team.
अब आ रहा है, आप जो बोल रहे थे ना अब आ रहा है, वेट आता है ना इस पे।
Hello. 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 View webinar.